He's got the
They're
Bucky
actually
shot,
so funny. Back to that printmaking story where I met my wife in high school.
right?
Mike was in that same class,
Oh,
and he was already friends with Judy, my wife, and so they were both dating other people, and but we ended up kind of coming together and sort of forging a friend group there. Now we're all in our 40s with kids and
oh,
careers and things. So it's
that's
been
really
awesome
important
to
in
have
tech.
them part of it because Mike's got a very, very strong mechanical background as well. In fact, he's a mechanical engineer.
So, hey, everybody, this is Chris with Cherokee Auto Sales, and I'm here with Stephen DePrang. Did I pronounce your name right?
You did.
Yeah, so Stephen is this is our very first interview and commercial on Zoom. Stephen's in Texas and I'm in Tennessee. And so he's in East Texas. What was the name of the city you're in again, Stephen?
Lindale.
Yeah. Where is Lindale, Texas?
It's about an hour and a half east of Dallas, the Dallas Metroplex. Or if you look at the map on Shreveport, Louisiana, and Dallas, we're sort of right in between on Interstate 20.
Oh, cool.
So East Texas, to be sure.
Yeah, for sure. Is there a lot there?
I'm sorry.
Is there a lot there in East Texas?
No, no, no. It's Tyler's the closest town. If you go to town, you're going to Tyler, Texas, and we kind of think of that as like our little East Texas Austin,
Yeah.
if you will. It's got a lot of the same vibe, you know, that Austin affords if you've ever spent any time there. So it's a
Austin's on the
different
other
place.
end of the state, is that right? Isn't
It's probably 4.5 hours.
yeah.
So it's not no, it's not at the other end of the state, but it's sort of in the middle, if you will,
Okay, very cool.
central, central Texas. But
And so so yeah, so Stephen has this online presence, got a website, conqueringcars.com, and he's on Instagram and he's on Facebook, and basically just kind of tell us what you're doing with Conquering Cars.
no, thanks. So we wanted to. I've got a full-time sales job myself
Right.
that I'd love to transition at some point one day out of and just help people full time. And that's where Conquering Cars came from. Instead of working on your local communities, your neighbors, friends, cars, your church, your fellow churchgoers, vehicles one at a time, and just being able to help one person at a time, full schedule, raising a family, and those sorts of things. Trying to balance all that out was really difficult. It was really stressful. So instead of just doing one car at a time, I thought, how could I help more people, in a with my efforts? And so that's sort of where we bore Conquering Cars out of. I really enjoy teaching automotive theory, things like that. I went to school, it's been over 20 years ago, mechanic school myself,
Mhm.
and learned about auto and diesel, industrial refrigeration, things like that. So it's always been an interest of mine, but I was only in the field for just a few short years at the beginning of my career, if you will. And but I've always kept one foot in, and that's like a whole nother story or whatever. It's not necessarily served me or my family well having done that. So that's where, again, this Conquering Cars idea of how can we educate people to make better decisions about how to maintain, how to buy a car, how to just something as simple as talking to their local mechanic, how to have an intelligent conversation with a mechanic and not be intimidated by that and know what kind of the right questions to ask. We need to get that in the hands of more people. So instead of doing it just one at a time, very limited reach over the course of a year, let's say, what if we could exponentially do that? And that's where Conquering Cars came from.
Right.
So,
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I've been on your website and I've watched several of the videos, and you've got some really cool stuff on Facebook and some really cool stuff on Instagram. There's a couple of good-looking young kids there. You might know them.
yes. Yeah, Olivia and Cecilia, they're our daughters.
Okay.
They've got lots of friends that have been involved with the project, so
Yeah.
there's lots of young people
Oh, yay.
that you'll see just coming over and doing silly car jokes or things like that.
Yeah.
A lot of our local community is very involved in the project, so it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I noticed you've got your the ultimate online car education program for kids and families.
Hmm.
So much like kind of like YouTube, like we've all gone to YouTube and we've watched a video on how to, nail this board to this board or how to install a kitchen, whatever it is. This is kind of like that where you can actually see somebody do it and you've got options there where people can interact with you and they can actually
Hmm.
Yeah, they can actually text you, so call you. And so
Yeah,
Steve,
we want to be accessible for sure. That's part of it, having a personalized, touch to. It's not just a curriculum that you take one time, but it's actually a family membership. So if you enroll, let's say you have two or three kids, maybe two of them are, 14 and then 16. One's about to start driving, one's not quite there yet, but if they both want to take it, you guys can both take it. So it's a family membership. So if mom or dad wants to take it, they can take it with the
oh,
kids too.
cool. Is
So
there
it's not
like
just one at a time or one user. It's for a family.
Mhm.
That's how we. That's essentially how we set it up.
is there like a curriculum they can go through and like videos they can watch and
Yeah, as a matter of fact, my 15-year-old, well, was 15, 16 now, 16-year-old daughter Olivia, she's actually the one speaking on nearly all of the
oh,
content,
cool.
the
Nice.
internal content. So you kind of follow along with her.
Mhm.
There'll be usually a task at the end. We've got, I think, 36 courses, and then the first six are actually part of our free content. We're going to modify that and change that a little bit. Um, but basically, there's 5 to 7 lessons on each course, and you kind of run through that, and then you'll receive a course completion.
Mhm.
But yeah, if anybody can go to conqueringcars.com and do the free content,
Mhm.
take those first. I think it is right now, it is 6 courses. I think we're going to change that to three.
Yeah.
So if folks want to get in there and get a little more of a taste of what it is, they can do that now and have access to six of the courses. But the other 30 are part of our paid content. So if you want to go a little deeper, and that's what that is there for.
Sweet. That's cool. And then so yeah, so Steven would like for if anybody's got any questions and you want to text him or call him, his cell phone number or I assume this is the cell phone number, but it's
It is.
346 yeah, 346-305-1671. And he's available, Monday through Friday from 9 to 5, but he does have a full-time job, so he will respond to you when he's available. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so
Yeah, we want to connect with as many communities as possible, and we're even trying to put a package together for, we originally did this for sort of as a homeschool curriculum, like a supplement.
right.
We want anybody that's interested to obviously, have access to it. But yeah, we're even trying to put some packages together right now for homeschools or charter schools or something like that that want to maybe take it and teach it themselves.
Mhm.
So we're putting it like a teacher's guide together and some other supplements like that. And so it would actually be less expensive per kid if a school wanted to, make it part of their curriculum
Right,
as
exactly.
well. So we teach it at our kids' co-op. So
Yeah, that's
once a week,
cool.
we teach Conquering Cars to about 10 kids at their school.
And the kids are what are their ages?
14 to 17.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely a mixed bag, and there's guys and girls in the class as well. So it's
So you're talking
we've
about high
really
schoolers
really
or middle schoolers even. Yeah.
yeah, late junior high, early high school typically. But yeah, I think I'd say 17 to 18 is probably about where we topped out in terms of young people that have taken a look. But now we've got even some of those parents giving us feedback like, "Oh, we're doing this with our kids
Oh,
as well. This is really cool."
yeah.
Um, we originally wanted to call it Kids Conquer Cars,
Yeah.
but we didn't want that to be necessarily a turnoff or to divert,
Right.
folks'
Big
attention because
purpose.
yeah, I mean, a mom or a dad could take this classes just as easily as a young person could.
Kids conquering cars is a real good idea about what you're actually wanting to do. But and I think that's honestly we're all just in 2025, and so there's a lot of screens, and every
Hmm.
like I saw a kid the other day had three screens in front of him at the same time, and
Yeah,
like how do you spend more time with your kid? I mean, you can pull a board game out, you can put the phone screens away, you can sit at the table together, but how do you like this is one way for you to spend more time with your kid with meaningful, content. So what about you?
absolutely.
Dave, we talked about Dave Ramsey earlier, and Dave always
Hmm.
says people spend money on four things before they spend money on anything else. And you remember what those four things are?
I know one of them's transportation.
Yeah, you got to get to work, right? So the car's one. What else do
Hmm.
people spend money on?
I was gonna say Starbucks. That's the first thing that comes to mind, but no, it's you've got your house, your
Yeah, your
shelter,
house. Yeah,
you
you
got
got
your
to have
house,
electricity in your house, and then you got to have
you gotta
food.
have utilities,
Yep, that's it. Those are the four
transportation,
things.
and
So,
they're not gonna not have communication,
well, you got
phone.
to have food, utilities, house,
Oh
and
yeah,
the
food, of
car.
course.
Yeah. Those are the four things. And so, Dave says that all the time. And so, when we first started, selling cars, we first bought this little car lot and stuff. we didn't realize that why it was going to be so strong because people keep coming back, they keep coming back, and I didn't
Hmm.
have a background in sales. I'm a licensed nurse still, and so I didn't have a clue, why it was so strong. And then one day Dave said that as I was driving, we were just listening to his podcast, and he said that, and I was like, well, dang, that's why. That's why this business is so strong because people have to have a car, especially in Texas, bro.
Yeah,
You
it's
gotta
yeah, I
drive.
think somebody said you can drive from it's closer to drive from Dallas to Canada than it is to drive from Beaumont to El Paso, which is the
Yeah,
most eastern and western towns in Texas.
that's hilarious.
Closer to go from Dallas to Canada, the Canadian border. I might be wrong about that, but I think if you turn Texas on its
Yeah.
side, that the distance is actually quite there. And we did it in one day years ago,
Yeah. That's cool.
950,000 miles east to west or something. It's crazy.
Is it cool if I ask you how you met your spouse?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we met in high school. As
Okay.
a matter of fact, we met in high school in a printmaking class. I had to take an art class to graduate. So as I was putting my high school transcript, I guess, together with a counselor, they said, "You got to take an art class." I said, "I'm not taking an art class." And they said, "You got to if you want to graduate. Just pick something. Printmaking, that's fun." I said, "I don't even know what that is, but I'll take it." So I went into this class and over the course of weeks and months, you meet all your classmates, and then I ended up meeting my wife in this class, and she was actually dating another guy at the time, had a boyfriend and
Ah,
everything, and so took a little work, took a little patience, persistence, and
right.
finally got her to see that I was a better choice. So we started dating around 17 or so, and then we dated for about 4 years before we
Oh,
got married.
yeah.
But yeah,
21
she
when you
went to
got
college.
married.
I went to mechanic school.
Yeah.
We got engaged in 2003 and married in '04.
Oh,
So
wow. You've been married a
21
long time.
years. 21 years this year.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah,
What
thank you.
did she go to? What did she study in college?
She was I think they called it at the University of Houston down here. It was like an interdisciplinary studies. It's a
Yeah.
very common class or degree if you're going to teach.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a gen
She was
ed,
going to be a
but
teacher.
yeah, teaching. Yeah. That's cool. And so she's homeschooling how many babies do you guys have?
We babies no more. 16 and 12-year-old daughters.
Okay. Two kids. Yeah. Gotcha.
So two girls. Yeah.
Yeah. We've got a total of seven, and four of them were homeschooled. So
All right.
yeah, a lot of
Are
I
you
just
guys
it takes a
were you guys
special
high school
person
sweethearts as well, or did you meet later past that time of life?
past that time in life. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a previous life for her. But yeah. I just don't know that I think it's a special person to sit at home and uh and teach and spend that quality time, and it definitely takes a special person.
No doubt.
I think the person that does that, probably most of the time it's a mom, but I think the
Hmm.
person that does that, it's like a next level intelligence. So we can talk about
Absolutely.
book smarts and we can talk about common sense, but that person,
Emotional wherewithal to be able to put being
emotional
a parent
intelligence.
and teaching and
Yeah.
then
Because
yeah,
just, you got your kid, especially when they get close to the teenage years, you know, oh my goodness, you've got your kid who they start to try to push and try to figure out, where the buttons are and stuff.
that's
And
right.
they can't help it. It's hormones, right? And
Yeah, you're
we've had
figuring out
one
where
of
the
our kids
boundaries
tell
are.
us
How far can I
before.
push? That's right.
Yeah, we've had one of our kids tell us before, say, I feel like crying right now, and I don't know why. There's nothing wrong. I realize nothing's wrong, but I just right now I feel very emotional and I feel like punching you in the face right now for no reason. And it's like, thanks for enunciating that, but that's emotional intelligence. So,
Very important, yeah. That
yeah,
you don't act on that. But hey, you don't want to judge them too harshly for the willingness to share with you what's on their mind,
right.
right? Keeping
Yeah.
keeping that door open.
Instant gratitude, is something that I think a lot of people expect when they're in the teenage, even adults, even adolescents, babies. Everybody likes instant gratification, but having that
Sure.
emotional intelligence and that patience to understand that, hey, this may or may not be the right thing for me right now. Hold off. Dave talks about that all the time, having getting to delay gratification, in order to and I mentioned Alex Hermosi earlier. Alex talks about it as well. Alex is like, well, I realized really early on that if I would only live on 10% of what I earned, then I would be able to create this empire. You know, you define it how you want to, but I would be able to create this empire that, where I don't have to work for the man anymore, if you will. And so
Right.
this massive,
It's freedom of time.
that's it. And that's one
It's
of the
freedom
things
of
you said
time.
you're interested in is not working for the, not to say that your job's not awesome, but
Oh no, yeah, I love my job. The organization, the folks that hired me and have given me, have faithfully through thick and thin during at the end of COVID and through downturns and, with the economy and all these things that everybody has experienced over the past, well, for me, 3 years. Yeah, they've been nothing but good to me and my family. And so, and also gave us the flexibility to move and have this remote position and furthermore, freedom of time to come up with and create something like Conquering Cars.
right.
So yeah, just nothing but gratitude for that. But yes, I mean, at some point I'd love to just be able to teach and help as many people as possible. I think isn't that what Dave Ramsey, I forget who he quoted, but it was it Moody or I can't remember who he was quoting, but when you help enough people get what they want,
Mhm.
you get what you want,
Yeah,
basically.
I have heard him say that before. Yeah.
Oh,
Tell me about a superhero power that you have. So let me elaborate a little bit. I have
okay.
a superhero power. I have something that I'm really good at. When people lose something, I can find it. So like if you lose your keys, if you lose your AirPods, if you lose your car at Walmart,
Hmm.
then I can find it. My whole life, if somebody loses something, I can find it. If it can be found, I can find it.
Okay.
So tell me about a superhero power that you have.
I think in-depth observational awareness. You ever seen the show Monk?
Yes, of course.
Heard it? Tony Shalhoub's, I think the lead star in the. I'm like the mechanic Monk.
Yeah,
I see things. I'll open a hood and I'll see something, and it's like, yeah, the lube technician that replaced your air filter last time forgot to tighten up the 8 millimeter nut on your intake hose, so you've got unmetered air getting dirty air getting past your air filter going straight into your intake manifold.
no bueno.
People are like, "How do you see that?" And I'm like, "It's the clamp's not untied enough. I can just look at it and tell you."
Yeah, yeah.
It's little things like that that, that's kind of what that my superpower would be if I had to say. I'd say it's a really in-depth observational ability,
Yeah.
or
Do you have
however
the
you want to phrase
opposite? Do
it.
you have the opposite of a superhero power? Do you have something that you're really not good at that you'd like to talk about?
No, not that I like to talk about, but I'll be happy to share with you.
Yeah.
Something that I don't like is, which is really interesting for somebody coming from a mechanical background.
Right.
I don't like spills on the ground.
Yeah.
Sounds really, really corny, but when you got a car on the lift and you're trying to drain a radiator because you're going to replace a thermostat or replace a water pump, you got to replace the coolant,
You don't like it getting all the way to
transmission
the
fluid,
concrete. Yeah.
oil, brake fluid's the worst. You've bathed, you've taken baths in this stuff if you've spent any time underneath the car to
Yeah.
shop.
Yeah.
And you've had all these fluids on you before. Got them in your hands, whether you wear gloves or not, it still gets brake fluid's the worst in my opinion. But spilling fluids is actually like a hang up of mine. I don't know if it's classified like an OCD thing, but you could probably
No,
call me the
you get
OCD
it.
mechanic.
Yeah.
I'm very methodical and try to keep a nice tidy workspace when I'm working, which is maybe not too unusual. But when you're a mechanic and you're working in a shop trying to earn a living, you don't have time to tidy up and clean up. You got to get the job done.
Right.
Maybe wipe the customer's car off where you worked and get it back to them. But that's like the last thing you should be thinking about. So it was kind of a hang up for me actually for a number. I don't want spills. I don't
Get
have
a
to
lot
clean
of
up
buckets
something additional.
around you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I want a nice tidy work area. So when it's not like that, it's kind of a hang up for me to get started. So there you go. Full
When
vulnerability.
you come in and you got a valve gasket leak or something really bad. It's like there's oil everywhere, when you look up. So that's interesting.
No, the first thing you do is you call the customer back and say, "Hey, I'm going to charge you $100, right? Or whatever the price is. I'm going to take a bottle of Simple Green
Right.
in your car, and we're going out to the parking lot, putting it up on ramps. We're going to degrease under the hood and underneath the car before I ever touch it or look at it.
You have to.
You can't find the source of a leak oftentimes, especially as you mentioned, like a valve cover gasket leak.
Yep.
Got to do a little cleanup and everything so you can get in
Have
there and
to.
actually see what else is going on.
You have to, 100%. So
Yeah.
I don't know what you call this, but it would be the opposite of a superhero power, as I'm horrible
What's
at naming animals. I've never successfully named an animal before. My my first dog, who we don't have anymore, he was about 10 when we lost
Okay.
him, but his name was Peppy, and Peppy came from the word puppy. So my best friend had named him Puppy because nobody wanted him because he had been fixed. He was a little
Okay.
Yorkie, and so when I got him, he had already he knew what puppy was, so we called him Peppy. And then we have a girl Yorkie now, and her name is Trudy. And so my wife named her after her grandmother, Gertrude. So that was Trudy.
Okay.
And then her little boyfriend slash husband now, his name is Teddy. And so my father-in-law at the time wanted to name him Theodore. And so Teddy was short for Theodore. So when
There you go.
yeah, when I've ever tried to name an animal, I just always give them the craziest name. It's like Bob or something. It's like it just never seems like it's a good name. So I just always let other people name our animals. So and then I got to talk about our cat. We've got an 18-year-old cat named Snuggles, and so my wife named her because she was so snuggly. So
Should be the mascot for like a laundry detergent or something or a fabric softener.
you guys have animals?
Oh yes, we do. We've got a little 2 acre homestead out here and a few hundred yards off the road, so that's kind of nice. But we recently got a Pyrenees was our first dog. He's a Pyrenees mix,
They're
big
big.
100, big 130 pound dog. Great, fantastic. He was a rehome, so he'd been trained and everything. So it was a huge blessing to get to add him to the family, and he moved out here with us. So we had one dog back in Houston, moved out to East Texas, and then uh, got some chickens. We got out here, built a chicken coop. We want to have fresh eggs, so we got 20 chickens, and over our first 2 years, 15 of them survived. So got some great egg layers, and then the neighbors had a couple extra cats from a litter. One of them wandered over here, and
Oh,
thought, I don't have any use for a cat. I'm not a big. I mean, I grew up with cats. I don't mind them, but they don't reciprocate like a dog does. You know, they're kind of their own person, their own people. And but this is a great cat. She was real playful, real sweet. And within 2 or 3 days of coming over to the house, she brought him a rat. From one of the pastures near our house. She brought him a rat up to the house and said, "Hey, look what I got." A few days later, she brought another one. So I was like, you know what? You can stay. You've got a purpose here. So we ended up with a
dead
cat.
rat, a dead rat.
Well, it was nearly.
Okay,
It wasn't quite. She
but
was
she
having
wasn't
some
bringing
fun
you.
with it, let's
Yeah,
say.
she was showing you her trophies. So
Exactly. She was bringing the trophies to the door saying, "Look what I got for you." So she's probably caught 5 or 6 now.
oh
And ended with another playmate for our dog Inigo. He's actually our Conquering Cars mascot. So if
oh
you poke around Conquering Cars enough, you'll see Inigo, black and white,
yeah.
Pyrenees dog. A lot of people think he's a Mastiff or uh, he's been called many different breeds, but his mom was essentially a full Pyrenees. Just a great animal. We got him a playmate, a Cane Corso puppy, who's
Oh,
probably going to be as bigger
holy
than
moly!
him. So a couple dogs, a cat, 15 chickens, and then we said, let's up our game a little bit. Let's go for let's go big or go home. And we had a lot of community want more eggs, so we ended up getting 42 chickens this year.
Wow.
And then some good friends of ours needed to rehome some sheep and a goat. So we ended up with 4 sheep and a goat, a cat, another dog, and 42 chickens within the past 2 months. So it's been
You buy a lot of chicken feed.
you do, but you also let them out. I mean, we free
Oh,
range
okay.
these guys during the day. The only problem is we've got hawks here, and the hawks they'll haul a chicken off in a heartbeat. So you
You
kind of have to keep an eye on them,
I'm looking at your
and the
website
dogs can only do
here.
so much.
Yeah, I'm looking at your website here, and it's you and your wife and your two daughters.
Hmm.
Man, you have some pretty. We have pretty girls in our family too, but you're it skipped me, and it looks like it skipped you here, but there's some pretty women in your family. It looks like you're
Yeah,
yeah,
very,
genetics there.
very blessed, very blessed. Better than I deserve, right? That's what
I'm
old Dave
looking for
Ramsey
yeah,
said.
that's what Dave always says. I'm
Better
looking
than
at
I
your dog. I
deserve.
don't see your dog yet. So me
No, Inigo, I don't think he's in the family portrait, but we made stickers. We've been to some local car shows and things like that. We've incorporated him,
yeah,
and he's quite iconic
for
in
sure.
our friends and family and church local community.
Right?
So we sort of added him in there. And then Mike and Sam Jash, really close friends of ours, they're sort of our business partners, and they're based out of Denver, Colorado.
Oh,
So if you look around
yeah, I saw
in our
that.
About Us
Yeah,
section,
I see him with the red
you'll
hat.
see Mike and Sam and Henry. And
He's got the
they're
Bucky
actually
hat
so
on,
funny. Back to that printmaking story where I met my wife in high school.
right?
Mike was in that same class.
Oh,
And he was already friends with Judy, my wife, and so they were both dating other people, and but we ended up kind of coming together and sort of forging a friend group there. Now we're all in our 40s with kids and
oh,
careers and things, so it's
that's
been
really
awesome to
important.
have them part of it because Mike's got a very very strong mechanical background as well. In fact, he's a mechanical engineer,
Okay.
so he brought a lot
If
of
he's
great
not a
ideas.
nerd, I don't know. I don't know who is if he's not a nerd. So,
Oh no, he's definitely he's had some really interesting career options as well. His engineering stuff has taken him a lot of different places, so it's a lot of fun to get to talk. But he's so down. He's the kind of I always think of mechanical engineers. They're the down to earth engineers.
yeah. Oh, yeah,
They're the
yeah.
ones you can go out. They're relatable.
Don, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've worked with electrical and chemical engineers in the past and other jobs I've had, and man, it can be a challenge to get them to see maybe the just I guess just to be relatable. That's probably the best way to say it. But you take a mechanical engineer out there, like, oh, yeah, I can see why you would want it designed this way,
Right.
and I think I just get along better with them. It's those are the kind of engineers that I jive with.
Yeah, mechanical. So
Hmm.
you've mentioned teacher and you've mentioned engineer. So do you
Yep.
remember the top five everyday millionaires that Dave talks about? Do you remember who they are?
Top five everyday millionaires in
Yeah,
terms of their
yeah,
careers.
in terms of their careers. Yeah, the top, these are the top careers, the top most common careers of an everyday millionaire. So somebody who has a net worth of $1 million or more, these people do it quicker than anybody else. So
Interesting.
engineer's number one, CPA,
Well, I don't know if entrepreneurs in there, but I would assume
it's
that.
I would assume
But
entrepreneur.
what type of entrepreneur?
Yeah, yeah.
Small
Manager.
business owner from the standpoint of like probably a
Yeah,
mechanic shop owner.
yeah. Well, I
If
would
I
say
had,
management would be your entrepreneur because your entrepreneur
mm,
is going to be your entrepreneur, your manager, and your technician together. So that,
okay,
yeah,
yep,
those three roles often would be the manager, but yeah, entrepreneur would be right there with manager. Teacher, you said your wife went to school to be a teacher.
hmm,
That's one of them. And then
yep.
head accountant is one, and then attorney is number five. So,
I was gonna say a pilot too. I've got a couple of pilot buddies that do very well, but they've been at it for a while, so I
okay.
wouldn't say necessarily quit because you got to fly, you got to put the time in to
Yeah.
build up some, but you can do very well as a pilot.
Yeah, pilots. And that's going to be more like a commercial or like a even
Hmm.
a trainer pilot. Yeah. Yeah.
Right,
So, and a lot of those guys are ex-military, so that's where they've gotten their hours. They haven't had to pay for that themselves. So
right.
they'll come in with like thousands of hours. So here's another question I'm going to throw on.
Yeah.
We'll do two more and then we'll be
Okay.
done. So tell me about one of the happiest days of your life. Totally unscripted.
Happiest days of my life. I mean, just bliss was driving in. I mean, the last one I can remember. If I had maybe more time, I could come up with a few other great examples. I mean, seeing my wife come to faith, like in her own faith for
Okay. Yeah.
her seeing that happen, and then just kind of following that up with just sort of a change of our lifestyle and things like that. That was pretty spectacular. And then a second to that, with her, with the girls, we were in Yosemite National Park a few years ago,
Mhm.
about 5 years ago, as a matter of fact. And this is in May,
Mhm.
and they had this huge snowstorm that came in,
Oh,
and all
wow.
the locals from like Fresno and the surrounding cities and towns that would normally frequent Yosemite.
Yeah.
It's kind of like their version of I don't know what you guys have in Knoxville, but like Houston, growing up in Houston, Astroworld was like the go-to.
Okay.
Everybody went to Astroworld on the weekend or
Okay.
Six Flags or whatever.
Okay.
Well, Yosemite is like the local thing for people to do on the weekends. It's
Huh?
people go to Yosemite, multiple times a year. Well,
Oh,
we
yeah.
were there for a week with friends, and we drove in, and that snow had kept everybody, all the regular tourists and the locals from coming out. And we talked to one of the locals there in the little town we were staying in, just 15, 20 minutes outside of the park. And they said, you guys need to commit and get up in the morning and drive in. and we drove into a snowflock Yosemite National Park into the valley and everything, and we had to go slow. You know, it was
Oh,
pretty dangerous, but I mean, you're up and the clouds are right there with you, and I forget the elevation and everything, but driving in and spending the day with my family and our very close friends and their family and kids. You know, it was like 65 degrees average temperature that day. All the snow melted off by the time we got out of there in the afternoon, but that day was just so you know, it's just such a cool experience in terms of just like, you know, just natural beauty, getting to share that with the people you
the
care most
family was
about.
there. Yep.
Yeah, there was just so many different elements to it. It was just it was a really special day. But yeah, prior to that, I think seeing your spouse or your own kids, you know, finding their faith, I think that's probably, you know, probably number one.
Oh, yeah,
That's
that's
pretty
cool.
awesome.
That's a good answer. I've not ever asked anyone that question before unscripted. We usually talk about our questions before. So that's a
A lot of
good
different emotions, a lot of different things ping you
yes.
if you do it unscripted, like we just did. I had several other things that just came to mind, but yeah,
Yeah,
those
I
were
can
some
see
of the
your
bigger ones.
I can see your thought process. You stopped and cocked your head and you were thinking about it for a second. So
Well, how
um
about you? I mean, I don't know how much more time we have, but what was one of those big moments for you?
our first child being born, I remember
Hmm.
that as being a very happy moment, a
Hmm.
tearful moment for me.
Sure.
I was 21 when she was born, and she actually just had our very first grandchild, and so we're little sweet Ruby just
Oh
got
my gosh.
there Sunday. Yeah, we went
All right,
to a party.
congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
Yeah, I'm a
great.
grandparent now, and we're both in our early 50s, and so that's something that happens, but you get to hold that very first grandchild, and now she's laughing and giggling, and so that was definitely for me. That's been one of the happiest moments of my life.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
we had our daughter first. I have two biological kids, my daughter and my son,
Okay.
and so we had our daughter first, and then my son was born 2 years later, and they're still a really big part of each other's lives. But anytime, they say that you spend 90% of the time with your kids before they turn 18.
I've heard 80%, but 90 is probably just as, if not more
Majority.
accurate. Yep.
Yeah, and so it's important to me now for the rest of my life that I still get to spend time with them. And so my son lives in Manhattan, We're getting ready to spend a week with him first, and
Okay.
we're all going to the beach together. And then my daughter lives here in town. And so, she's a stay-at-home mom. She's raising the sweet little baby girl. And so I mean, I get to go over there for an hour, maybe on the weekend we'll go out and eat with them or something like that.
Sure.
But I was always a very hands-on dad, and so it was really important to me that my kids turn out perfect, or what my idea was perfect was, and so I always gave them the time and the energy, and so that makes me happy. Family for me, family's number one, whether it's
Yep.
my parent who's still alive or my siblings or my children or my extended children. We've got 7 kids total that I'm still responsible for, and whether it's teaching somebody about the car business,
Hmm.
we got a bunch of our early success was selling cash cars, and
Hmm.
you're in sales, and so when somebody figures out how to talk to somebody, how to listen, and how to have an active conversation, when I see somebody else successful and I'm able to mentor another dealer, that really makes me happy. And that's happening right now with a gentleman in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. He's 22, and he and his wife have 2 babies. I think they have a 6-month-old baby, and that makes me happy to see him. He was struggling a little bit when I first met him, and now he's just, and it's based on money. It's a monetary gain when you're selling cash.
Sure.
But there's a cost when you have a dealership. There's a basic cost to, making sure your business is successful until the next month, because most
Right.
people rent in the beginning. And so you have to be able to meet that bare minimum. You think about your home. If you don't meet the bare minimum cost of your home, you don't have a family anymore long term. So that has to be important to
Yeah.
kill something and bring it home, like Dave says. You got to learn how to make a living. And uh,
Right.
so it's just I see what I see because of my life experience, nature versus nurture, right?
Hmm.
But I also know it's possible, and so when I tell people that, and then I show them, and I actually give them, this is how you do it and stuff. And then when I see them do it, it makes me so happy. And I don't even charge. I like I've done a little bit of marketing help with you today, and we don't charge for that. You know,
Yeah.
I'll
No,
actually I'll actually show you how to set your Google business profile up. I'll spend hours with you setting that up and refining it, and it's just something I enjoy doing. So, but that makes me happy.
that's
So.
That's great. Yeah, seeing other people do well and succeed, like I think that's definitely where, yeah, hearing somebody come back and say, "Hey, I did what you said. I went and talked to the shop, and they're gonna let us, we didn't want to use our credit card to do the repair or whatever. They're gonna let us make two payments.
Right.
So we're gonna go pick up our car on Friday, and they're gonna let us pay half, and then in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever, we're gonna pay the other half, just so we don't have to put it on a credit card." I'm like, "But you wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
You were stressing about it, but I told you, just
Yeah.
ask them,
That's
you
it.
know." And you never know. Worst thing they can do is say no, and then you can go back to what you were planning on doing anyway. It's like I think Dave said that too. I forget again. He's so good about crediting,
Mhm.
giving credit where credit's due
Yep.
when he quotes somebody. Um, but maybe it was Zig Ziglar he used to quote about if you help enough people get what you want,
Mhm.
then you end up getting what you want. But or what they want, then you get what you want. But that's yeah, getting that feedback, seeing people do well, like you're saying. I mean, that's what we want to do here, um, with conquering cars and things like that. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to share that with your community up there and beyond.
Yeah. Well, this is going on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, and so
Awesome.
yeah, our community is everybody in the whole world, just like yours is. So one of the I want to talk about this because I feel like I recently got married again. We just got married. I keep telling everybody it was last Sunday, but it had to have been at least a month ago now. But we've dated for about 5 years, and so but I know you've been married for
Well,
20.
another congratulations is in order then.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, we've gone the whole almost 5 years and never even argued the first time. So that's really cool. Neither one of us really like to argue. So but anyways, Dave talks about and I'm not a big Bible scripture person, but I will make reference to Dave making reference to this Bible scripture, but who can find a virtuous wife? So
Mm,
I think that's really important, and people don't realize how important that is to have a good team member, somebody who you think the same way about God, you think
you
the
bet.
same way about money, you think the same way about debt, you think the same way about raising your children, and so I think that's so important to have a good team member, where you both think about the same way. And Dave talks about that's one of the main Bible verses that he references, talking about a virtuous wife. So
Yeah, well, this is something that I thought would be fun to do, and then my wife Judy ended up putting pencil to paper and started working on it a couple of years ago, and said, "If you want to do this, it's going to take a while. It's going to take work, and we need to make it. You can't keep doing one, one person, one car at a time. If you want to reach people, you need to. I mean, that could be part of the mix. Sure,
yeah,
that could be part of the mix, but if you're going to stay with your sales job, and we're going to build this, then it's going to take a lot of work." She put the hours in. Our friends, Mike and Sam and many others have put so many hours in on this project, getting it up and up off the ground. So yeah, I look forward to serving everybody with it. But yeah, it wouldn't be possible without her.
yeah,
Kind of started with the 4 hour work week. I started reading this book, and I said, "You've got to read this." I was like, "This would be so much more powerful in your hands." That's kind of where it started. Sort of this little self-help, road I went down, and it was always Dave Ramsey was kind of always part of that mix, and other, you know, Warren,
Warren
can't
Buffett.
remember his first name, but
Is it
Robert
Warren Buffett?
Kiyosaki and
Oh,
some
no,
of these
Warren is the
other,
last name.
yeah, and is it Rick Warren, I think, but a bunch of these different authors that Dave Ramsey always, attributes to some of his ideas and thoughts and stuff. But yeah, I said, "Oh, babe, you got to read this book and this 4 hour work week thing." And then ever since then, this is years like 3, 4 years ago, she's kind of flipped the script and she's like, "Well, you told me this was your book. You got this as a gift from a family member, and then you gave it to me, and I actually am doing what it says to do to create that freedom of time. But that's ultimately what this was for. Is it's not so we can sit around in a hammock
Right.
and have drinks all day. It's
Right,
so we can
exactly.
help more people. I want to help more people.
Yeah.
That's what we're here to do.
So,
And so yeah, but you need freedom of time to be able to do that
right.
and to be
Work
able to
on
build
your
these ideas.
business.
So I
Yeah.
can't wait to learn more about your business, Cherokee Auto.
Yeah.
and see kind of. I'd love to spend more time with you, perhaps off this podcast, and just learn, dig a little deeper into what it is and all these different things that you're involved with, because it sounds like a lot of the same stuff that we want to do. We want to help as many people as possible. So
Yeah, there's actually car dealers who teach Financial Peace University in their car dealership. So we
that's
do it
awesome.
on a one by one. A lot of people don't want you telling them, what's going to happen. So it's just, we
Sure.
tend to be more suggestive with it. But I have, staff members, and our staff members will come to me and they'll say things about their personal finance,
Hmm.
which they've just never been taught. If you're not taught how to be a mechanic and how to change a starter, you just don't know until you try. And then you got to have that muscle memory. You can watch the video all day long, but until you actually do it, until
Yep.
that alternator wire actually sparks on the motor one time, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
You
it's
you
called
will remove
welding.
the
You
battery the
just
next
learned how to weld. Congratulations, you're a welder.
you
Yeah.
will remove the battery first next time.
Yep.
But yeah, that's cool. So your 4-hour work week, I've never read that book before, and so we're gonna
Mhm.
put a link to that. Is that a book you would recommend?
I mean, yeah, the idea of realizing that there's so many things that we do as like a society, like obsessing about emails, right? Like especially if you spent time in the corporate world, which I did for, there's a small window there, and a big part of your job is staying on top of, email.
Right.
You get lots of different email, lots of projects going on. That's part of the mix. It's not talking about not having a job that requires you to be on email. It's saying like sort of what we do now, which I think is referred to as doom scrolling. You get on the
Right.
phone
Yep.
and you just you lose time. You lose your life to time on your devices instead. But not just young people, adults too. See it all the time. You go to a restaurant, family's sitting there, and it's a
Everybody.
classic nuclear family, and all four members of the family are all on a cell phone.
Yep.
Nobody's talking,
Crazy.
nobody's interacting. They order their food and they go right back to all being on their phone. I'm like, well, what was the point in going out to eat?
What?
I guess nobody was going to cook that night. That's what everybody had in common.
Yeah.
But I mean, that 4 hour work, the idea of being able to um, capitalize and get very intentional, the intentionality about what you do with your time, how you're accountable to yourself with your time. I think that's where it's like, yeah, if you want to do something like Conquering Cars or Cherokee Auto, you can't, you don't have time to waste. Time is so precious, it's so valuable. And I'm learning that so late in life in my 40s now that it's the one thing that it's the most valuable thing for you to give. So if you're going to give your time to something or someone, it should be worth it.
Right.
Right. And so, but yeah, no, I mean, I think that was just sort of a starting point. My wife's read so many great books. The E Myth. I don't know if you, I can't remember the author. It'll come to me in a moment, but the E Myth was a really interesting,
Read that? Have you read the E-Myth?
or the E Myth Revisited, I think was his revamped.
Michael Gerber. Have you read that book?
Gerber, there it is. Michael Gerber, that was a fantastic book. Basically, the idea of you like to bake, well, you should open a bakery because all your friends told you should. And you open the bakery and now you hate baking. Now you can't even stand to the smell or the look of pies. That was just one of the examples in his book that
Sarah.
he gave of
Yeah, Sarah. So the E-Myth is a book about Sarah, and her grandmother taught her how to make pies, and then she opened a pie shop, and then
there you go.
she became the manager, but she didn't understand the different roles between the entrepreneur, the manager, and the technician. I mentioned that earlier when we were talking.
Yeah.
So I've got a digital copy of the E-Myth, and I'm gonna put in the show notes here. I found just a link for the book. You don't have to buy
Yeah,
it.
it's a great thing to consider when you're, especially if you're, business minded, if you want to, if you're having that I think they call it entrepreneurial seizure
Yes, yes,
in the midst of wanting to break away, and I got to stop working for the man. I could be doing this myself and making myself millions of dollars. Well, before you do that, just consider it's not always bad working for somebody. They take on that's a lot of responsibility off your shoulders.
right.
So it gives you a great perspective of um, you know, that balance and how to think through and not suffer from that entrepreneurial
Yeah,
seizure, not go run out and open up your own car lot
yeah.
right off the bat just because you think that you sold a car on Facebook Marketplace, so now you're a car dealer.
That's it, man. And that's what a lot of people do is they make that mistake. We use somebody else's license legally for 3.5 years. and
Okay.
then we broke up with him, and so it really hurt my feelings when we broke up with him. But I actually talked to him yesterday about buying his dealership now, and that's been
Oh,
probably
really?
4 years since we quit using his
Well, that's
dealership.
awesome.
Yeah, so but I don't think it's going to happen. He still has a successful business and he still has a lot of time left, and so but I am looking for a second location. I'm looking for an old timer who's wanting to get out of the business. So
Yeah.
yeah, we will this business is interesting. There's a lot of learning, and but any business is interesting. So you're but yeah, so I want to end we're going to end our
Okay.
I'm almost out of time again here.
Sure.
So this has been so we've spent time today with Stephen DePrang, and Stephen has a platform called Conquering Cars. And the whole point of Stephen's platform is to teach kids and adults alike how to conquer the car, how to actually learn how to do mechanic work, how to do maintenance. I'm looking forward to seeing your platform in more depth. Steven's out of Lindsdale, Texas, and his cell phone number, you can text him or you can call him, is
Yeah.
346-305-1671. And if you just want to call and set up a time just to have a conversation with him, he's a very intelligent individual. And I've learned a lot from you today, Steven. So,
Well, thanks for having me. Likewise, I've learned a lot too, and look forward to future conversations. I want to hear more about Cherokee, and maybe we'll have to get up there and do a road trip series for
oh,
conquering cars.
absolutely. Yeah, about
Come
three
up there and
times a
see you.
year. About 3 times a year, I'll get out. I actually just did it last week, but about 3 times a year, I'll find dealers in the National Association, and I'll
Hmm.
travel out into the United States, and I'll visit 2 or 3 dealerships over a 2 or 3 year period. And I think Texas is going to be a place I come to sometime. Texas is definitely a huge state, and so they actually have their own association in Houston. They have their own association in San Antonio. Texas has its own association, and so Texas is a really, really, really big deal with the National Association. And so I've been invited several times to the different associations they have there to talk and stuff like that. So
Well, cool. Well, put
yeah, but
Tyler on your map. If you get to Tyler, Texas, that's earshot. That's real close. So
yeah, hopefully we'll get to meet one of these days in person. But thanks for being on our podcast, and
yeah, thank
um,
you.